Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Jake Freeveld. I'm head of product marketing here at Fulcrum. I'm joined by Zach McCormick, our CTO, and today we're going to talk about getting ROI from AI by improving field productivity. The agenda for today is a pretty solid one. We're going to move through a number of things pretty quickly. I'll start. If you've been here before, you'll get a little bit of level setting, so you might be bored there, but I promise it's the last time you'll be bored during this entire thing. Then I'll go through a little bit of the methods of using AI to improve productivity, and then talk about some of the feature characteristics. The AI that we are implementing at Fulcrum is different from one type to another, and we'll talk through that a little bit. Then I'll get out of the way. Zach's going to do a demo, and he's going to show a number of these things live, including some pretty cool and mind-blowing features. So that'll just be a really fascinating thing to watch. Stick around for that. We talked about getting ROI, and one of the things that people are challenged by is calculating ROI, and I'll talk about payback period too, because I find it's easier to talk to some chief financial officers and so on by using that kind of language. So I'll actually walk you through an example of what it means to do that after the demo, and then I'll talk a little bit about why it's important for all of this stuff to be done in a platform. At the end, we should have plenty of time left for questions and answers. So stick around, ask your questions. There's a survey to fill out at the end, and we request that you do that. We take those really seriously, and we'll be happy to take whatever questions you have. So with that, I'll let Zach drop off camera, and I will go to the level set. If you know Fulcrum, then you know something about our history, that we were originally a data company, not a software company, and Fulcrum grew out of the need for field workers to collect data more efficiently. So Fulcrum is literally built by a field organization for the field. Its job is to capture and share everything you could possibly need from the field faster, more accurately, and with less frustration than you could do using other methods, whether it's pencil and paper or whether it's other digital solutions. As a result, what we've built out in Fulcrum is what we call a field tech platform as a service, right? It's field tech because it's by the field, for the field, managed by the field, and it gives power and control to the field to manage their own destiny with respect to the kinds of work that they're doing from a data collection perspective or process management. One thing it does is it enables standardization of field workflows. So you can build out, whether it's for vegetation management or whether it's for pole inspections, whether it's for culvert inspections, a huge variety of different use cases. You can standardize your field workflows to collect the data that's necessary, if it's something like an inspection where data collection is the requirement, or to manage the process and show that you have complied with all the steps in the process. If it's something like vegetation management where it's not about the data, but you need to prove that you did it right. It wouldn't be effective to standardize everything that we've got if we couldn't also customize it to match the variety of different situations that we're engaged in. So for example, if you're a contractor who works both in Oklahoma and in New York, you can bet that there's going to be some differences between what you need to capture as part of those processes. So being able to quickly tailor the information capture to what you need it to be is very straightforward within Fulcrum. That can be done by the field. It can be done by GIS teams. It can be done by IT, but generally it's not, because it's one of those things that the field is able to handle. And then finally, integrating with field tech. Think about all the things the field has to do its job, things like 3D cameras or sensors, things of that sort. Being able to integrate with those things to get the job done that you need in the field correctly. Being able to integrate with corporate systems, both to get information and to push information out to it, whether it's GIS like Esri or whether it's a different kind of system for engineering or asset management or something like that. And then finally, AI, which is obviously why we're here today, and you'll see plenty of that as we move forward. Bottom line is, if you use Fulcrum as a field platform as a service, then you're going to get better performance from your field workers. You're going to get better data from them. You'll have better margins because your productivity will be so much higher, and ultimately you'll have happier clients, whoever those clients might happen to be. So what I'd like to do is just start briefly with the difference between Fulcrum and some traditional methods of collecting data. The process without Fulcrum for a typical water utility contractor is going to go out and do something like manhole inspections. Would look something like this. First, they've got to sync locations from ArcGIS, maybe do a download into a spreadsheet, or maybe they're using an Esri app to keep that information on hand. They will drive to a manhole, they'll look up the asset information maybe on a laptop, they'll perform the inspection. There are multiple steps in that inspection, which we'll get to later on. Then might take pictures, and then they'll synchronize that information. How? that when they take a picture, the digital picture gets uploaded to Dropbox, and they take the URL from that Dropbox link and plug it into the spreadsheet or something. It's kind of an ugly process. Then finally, they'll drive to that next manhole. And then at the end of the day, of course, they've got to reconcile data errors and things like that. It can be very complicated. With Fulcrum, it's a much simpler process. You drive to the manhole and you perform the inspection. The integration with Esri is outstanding. We've already got, for example, feature service layers on the device so you can see what's going on there. We're an Esri Silver partner, so it's very, the integration there is very robust. And the additional asset information and everything is all right there. The pictures are associated with the record that you're taking, so you never have to synchronize it or worry about that information getting lost. Once you've done the inspection, you drive to the manhole and you're done. As a result, more work in less time, more accurate data, less reconciliation and frustration for those people spending, a couple extra hours at night doing the reconciliation tasks. But this is Fulcrum versus, rather paper or traditional processes versus Fulcrum. Let's talk about what happens when you bring AI or field tech into the Fulcrum ecosystem and how much more effective that can be. So this is plain vanilla Fulcrum now, where I'm going to drive to the manhole and perform that inspection. Let's say I get 8 steps. They're not very complicated steps, not any single one of them anyway, and but they each take time. I'm going to enter team information. I'm going to type in the weather. It's kind of warm and reasonably sunny. Take a picture of the manhole cover. I write down in Fulcrum, I type in with 2 thumbs what it says on the cover. I say it's square versus circular, whatever it may be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. With these 8 steps in place, I end up doing a fair amount of manual typing, a fair amount of manual work, even using Fulcrum. There's no way to get around that if you don't have the ability to capture this information in any other way. But that's where integration with field tech and AI really matters, because now when I drive to the manhole and perform that inspection, as soon as I open the form, first of all, I enter the team information the first time, and then it stays there for the rest of the inspections that I do, because it's all the same team, the same day. It defaults to that same information. And then Fulcrum can automatically call a weather service and put it in there. So instead of me saying it looks kind of nice and it's cool out, it says it's 68 degrees and sunny at this location, and with 10% cloud cover. Much more accurate information and much less time spent doing it. When I take a picture of the manhole cover, AI can figure out what it says on that manhole and put it into the right place, as well as enter whether it's a square or a circular manhole. When I take a photo of the interior, instead of me measuring the line diameters, I might be able to get those line diameters by them automatically using 3D cameras and the ability to make that kind of measurement within that 3D camera. And when I run a camera down a pipe and take a video walkthrough of that pipe, I might automatically be able to assess the inflow and infiltration likelihood based on things like dripping or cracks or other things that I see. So by integrating Fulcrum with AI and field tech, you're able to get a lot more possibilities. First of all, there are things that you can do that you simply couldn't have done before, and you're going to get a lot less time involved in it. You're going to make fewer errors, and you're going to have a lot, again, less frustration even than before. So I love Fulcrum plain vanilla. It's huge to go from paper or spreadsheets to the digital world, but it's even more impressive. It's the same kind of quantum leap to integrate field tech and AI into Fulcrum to get the job done more effectively. All right, we're here to talk about AI. So we're done setting the level. Now let's talk about AI and some of the specific ways that we use AI to improve productivity. I say we, this is a general set of capabilities to think about. Zach's going to show you the details in the Fulcrum demo. First, you're using AI right now, or at least some of you are, to do some ordinary things like text-to-speech. This is built into your phone, has nothing to do with Fulcrum, but it is an example of applied AI, and it's the kind of application of AI that is very productive and therefore something that we almost kind of want to model on, right? You click the button over here in the lower right, and that causes the little microphone button or microphone icon to show up in the text field, and you can talk and it will transcribe for you. This is typically on a phone used to fill out one field at a time, and I want you to hold that thought because you're going to see some really cool things as we move forward. So speech to text built into your phone, just one common way to use AI to make people more productive. A second one is facial distortion. This is applied AI. People think about AI as being something kind of pie in the sky. I'm going to use a very generic ChatGPT interface, something like that. This is not that. This is very specifically focused on a given problem. If you're in a Fulcrum app and are building it out and you have here, for example, safety verification photo, and you check this box that says enable face distortion, then you will enable an AI module that will never let an unblurred face leave the device. This is huge, obviously, for privacy. The blurring of faces is fast and accurate. It's a well-trained model, and you will never have an unblurred photo hit the server or go anywhere else off of Fulcrum. So we've been doing this for a number of years now. AI has been making some significant strides, and because of the strides that AI is making generally in the market, we're able to do more now than we could back in 2021. And that's part of the reason that we're here to talk, is you'll see the big differences that come out. One of those is being able to grab text from labels. So I take a picture of a tag. It says, is that the correct interpretation of that tag, right? Do I have the digits correct? If I say yes, then it goes into the pull tag field, makes it very easy for us to get information from a photo. Then you could also do something that's more sophisticated with what I call a photo-based fast fill, where you take a picture and you can detect objects you detect objects that are in the photo and take all of those different objects and put them in their appropriate place. So in this app, you can see that there's a culvert type, which is plastic, and you can see the environment that has water running and stone setting, and the vegetation doesn't block the culvert. You can detect information automatically about that, so somebody's not typing information into the phone to fill in those fields. This is something that can be done on device. We'll talk more about what's on device versus off device in a couple of minutes. This one is really interesting. I know it's part of the demo today. An audio-based fast fill where you talk. You just do voice dictation, and instead of filling out one field at a time or having to do things in a particular order, you just talk, and behind the scenes, we're calling an LLM and making it the information go into the appropriate fields all at the same time. This is something that needs to be done online because you have access to the LLM. But the power of it is that you don't have to do a lot of modeling, really any modeling, in order to get this to work. So we'll talk about that in more detail in a couple minutes as well. A photo-based fast fill is similar. I take a picture, there's a lot of information on the label, the faceplate that I have here, and the LLM can interpret what's on the faceplate and automatically plug it into all of the fields that are available in that form. So it's doing that automatically. There's no typing involved here. It's just if there's information on the faceplate, then it gets put into the device, into the app. There's a huge range of things that I've just talked about in a very short period of time. So I just want to put these into some buckets for you to think about that might be applicable to your use cases. So in some cases, what we can do is work offline with a model that gets deployed to Fulcrum. Right? In that case, we're actually building and training a model, and inside Fulcrum, if you know the insides of Fulcrum, great. If you don't worry about it. But inside Fulcrum, we're configuring a data event to use that device's built-in model. So you're deploying the model to Fulcrum. The app is going to use a data event to call that model. With that kind of a scenario, it's going to be highly specific. It's going to be saying, okay, well, I'm calling this data event in order to fill in this label, for example. So it's going to be very highly specific to your use case. And the effort to do so isn't that big of a deal because those models are pretty widely available, so it's not hard to do. But it does take a little bit of time, and typically you're talking about single fields. So there you're talking about something where I can extract text from a picture using a previously existing model in a specific way that's going to populate fields. Another offline capability is that photo-based fast fill that I showed you, where on the culvert you're able to do object detection. And in that case, you do need to be able to create and train and deploy the model because it's going to be something that's going to be focused on your very specific use case. In addition, typically you're filling out many different parts of it. You saw with the culvert inspection that I was saying, okay, the culvert is set in cement and it's not blocked, or whatever the characteristics you want to capture of that culvert are. So you got to take the information that gets in the model, and you need to be able to put that information into the field in the appropriate way. That's being done specifically by you as a client of Fulcrum, or by Fulcrum professional services, or by somebody. Somebody's got to do that mapping. So this also is very highly specific. And because here you are creating, training, and deploying a model, the effort required is a little bit higher. It gets a little bit magical when you go on the right-hand side. This doesn't work offline, but the benefit, if you do have a connection, is incredible. An audio-based fast fill, which you'll see where Zach is going to speak into the device, and the audio goes to an LLM and gets captured. This is extremely adaptable because we're able to share the information about the form that it's filling out with the LLM, and the LLM is able to figure out what gets said, or from the transcript, what got said, and the form, and marry those two things up. So this is extremely adaptable. Like if you add a field inside the first two that are working offline, you're not going to see a difference. If you add a field in the audio-based fast fill, you'll absolutely see a difference. And because it's using the LLM, which already exists, that takes minutes to set up, and it frequently will fill out an entire form. You talk until the form is filled out, and then the form is done. So a huge benefit there. And finally, the last one on the right, this also works online, not on device. But it's also similarly highly adaptable. You take the picture and it will figure out, based on what's in that photo, what goes into the form. This is typically going to be done for sections of forms, right? So not everything that you need to know is based on the nameplate that is on the piece of equipment you're inspecting, but that whole chunk of information is going to be absorbed and done much more quickly than you'd be able to do by typing or whatever. So that's typically a form section. So these are some of the things to think about as we walk through these different characteristics, these different applications of AI. Don't worry too much about the details of them, but if you have questions on what they imply, right, not just what they are, but what they imply, feel free to ask those questions. We'll be taking questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'd like to actually hand it off now to Zach. Let me hand control over to him. It takes a second to do that. Okay, I hope that just transferred to you, Zach. Let me know. What you're going to see here as Zach gets set up is a walkthrough of some of those use cases that I just described, but it'll be a little bit more concrete. Zach, take it away.
Hey, everyone. I'm going to start with the object detection use case that Jake just talked about. And so I have an iOS device here synced up with my Fulcrum account, and I've got a pre-trained model for detecting utility pole attachments. So this is running, what we're about to see is actually running on device offline. It actually, during the sync process, can pull down the model. Model sizes are, on the range of about 100 to 200 megabytes. This one's, I think, about 150 megabytes, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of data we're dealing with. So, and this model was trained specifically for utility pole attachments. And so I'm going to make a new record here. And I have it wired up to this first photo field. So when I take a photo of a utility pole, it runs the model locally on the device, and it says it found eight pole attachments, and it's a wood pole. So you can see it also filled in the pole type of wood, and it also actually created these 8 repeatable items representing the different attachments that it found. And just to give you a visualization of the data structures that this model is capturing, I've got a report here, a custom PDF report that'll show you what this model is doing. So you can see here, this model ran on the photo, and it gave, this is the output of the model, and I've got it displaying the different tags that it found. And this report is saved as a PDF, and I can send it to myself and include it along with the Fulcrum data. So that's just an example of what you can do using computer vision models in Fulcrum and capturing the boxes and the different objects and populating them into the form. And so let's now move on to the second demo, which is some voice stuff. So let's go over to the voice, which is in the audio form here. So here I've got, now this is using OpenAI as a connected LLM. So I've got a form here. It's a similar form. I'm just going to speak into here, and we'll have it populate the form. It's a wood pole in good condition. It has some rotting and cracks at the base of the pole. Set the status to completed and schedule a follow-up in 6 months. So now it's transcribing that, creating that transcript and processing it with OpenAI, and you can see it set the status to completed, and it filled in, it understands multiple choice fields even to fill that in. So yeah, it's able to populate an inspection record based off voice, and also it understands dates even to do some date math here. And so that's a really interesting way to populate significant parts of the form using a much more fluid and natural input method than having to punch in data by hand. And I got another demo here. Actually, I'm going to scrap that record and create a new record. And here I'm going to do the same thing, but in Spanish. I've got a recording here that our CMO gave me of a similar transcript. So I'm going to just pull that up here now and have that play while I'm recording it.
Es un poste de madera en buen estado. Tiene un poco de pudrimiento y rajadura en la base del poste. Marcar registro completo.
Okay, and now that's going to do that same thing. Thank you very much, Tomas. And so you can see it took that Spanish version, did the same process, it understood completed. So what we're seeing here is we're taking Spanish language input and actually populating an English form. There's other things you can do in Fulcrum relating to translating the labels and other different localization patterns we have in our documentation. But for this one, the form's in English, but the user actually spoke in Spanish and it was able to populate the form. So that's that demo. And now for the third demo, we're going to move on to the photo fast fill, which is a similar data population process using a photo as an input instead of voice. So here I've got a photo of this tag, this asset tag, and I'm going to add it here, and it's going to do a similar thing where it's going to populate the record based off of things that it found in the image. And it's looking at the different data fields and returning them and populating them into these different fields. And also I'll show one more example of it actually showing you what's available to pick in addition to what it already found. So here it was able to populate the manufacturer, the model number, and the frequency and the voltage. And I'll show the details here. So this is other data that it found in the image that we can use to populate it. And so if we look in here, you can see that it found, or there's like a field for the weight and current. So I'm actually going to go over here and show you, just to show you kind of the fluidity of using these LLMs and what the power can really be. So here's this form in Fulcrum. I'm going to add a field here for the current. And we'll just save that off and come back over here to the form. And let me just sync that up. So now I have the latest version of the form, and I'm going to add the same photo here, and you can see that current field there. And now let's see if it will actually fill in the current field that I just added. Yep, you can see it populated the current there, 1.1 amps. And let's do one more here. Let's add the, let's do the weight. And so you can use these, the additional extra data to kind of work and populate an entire form and eventually fill out all the fields that you want to that are available. So here it captured the weight, 68.3. And one more thing I wanted to show here, because this is kind of demonstrating why this is much more than text. It's actually really much more intelligent. So let's go into the details here, and I can say convert weight to kilograms. Convert the weight to kilograms. And let's see if this is a special area of the form I have to allow you to customize and give the LLM hints at what you want it to do and how you want it to respond. So uploading the same photo here again for the third time, let's process it again and see if the weight comes back in kilograms instead of pounds. So yep, so you can see here, now it came back as kilograms. So it not only extracted the text, but it's actually able to do things post-processing that you might have to use other techniques to do, like data events and other things. So, and the other cool thing is this is really adaptive. So I can hand it a sticker for a different manufacturer, and likely it will give you the same sort of data model, despite the sticker's totally different. So that's the demo of the photo fast fill. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jake now, and he can continue from here.
Thanks, Zach. I don't know about you all, but my mind got blown when Zach showed me that for the first time. And so you're going to see my screen here. There we go. My mind was blown, and part of it is that we're just able to do so much so flexibly with the large language model. So let's consider what we just saw, right? I gave a little bit of setup earlier. Zach showed it. I just want to recap briefly what we just saw. We saw, for example, in the model with the telephone poles, or pardon me, power poles, it was a specific model, it worked offline, and it was capturing the details of what those attachments were on the poles. So that's one type of deployment. The model goes out to Fulcrum, and it's designed specifically to handle this kind of very specific scenario. The other one, the last one he showed you, the yes, you are connected, but the ability to be dynamic and add in those comments and have things just change and have save the form and have those things change radically. That's one of the benefits of being online and connected, so you can have that level of flexibility. So there are a number of trade-offs to be made whenever you're choosing what kind of AI application you're deploying. Definitely worth talking about, just it's just so exciting because there's so much that can be done in a situation like this. And one of those things it's going to do, the purpose of all this, the impact of all of this, is hopefully to make your field teams more productive. And one of the things we've seen when we're talking to clients about how to demonstrate the value of AI is it's a little hard to understand. It's a little hard for people to say, well, it's going to save me this much, or it's a little bit hard to say, I need to invest in this because. So I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about ROI and payback period so that you can have a better financial conversation with people who are discussing the potential for AI. So I'm going to start with an ROI formula, and you can find a bunch of different types of this. I like this one because it's kind of generic, right? Bottom line benefit, whatever that is, minus the spend, whatever you're spending it on, times that 100%. The basic, what an ROI tells you, when I say I have XYZ ROI, is that for every dollar I give you, I'm going to pay you back, and I'm going to give you a little additional something on top of that in terms of money savings or in terms of additional business or whatever it might be. So that's what it is. Every dollar I give you, I'll pay you back, and I'll give you X amount more. That formula is important, so I'm going to pop it up there into the right-hand corner, and I'm going to start getting concrete because I think it's always easier to walk through a concrete example. Let's say we do about 1,000 inspections, and each inspection takes about 7 minutes each. I'm not talking about drive time and all that stuff. I'm just talking about the inspection process itself. And let's say it's a two-person team out on a truck. That truck costs you about $200 an hour when it's out there. And let's say that if we can do those in 7 minutes each, then about half the time I get a perfect AI-enabled inspection. You see exactly what Zach just showed you. And when I can do that, it takes me 2 minutes instead of 7 minutes, right? That works about half the time. The other half the time, maybe you don't have the ability to get a perfect result. So I'm trying to be conservative here, right? The potential is huge, but I want to be conservative about it. So half the time, maybe I need to take all 7 minutes and fill out the form with 2 thumbs. Or maybe sometimes it gets everything almost right, but it misheard me a little bit, so I got to correct one of the words, or it misreads a label and I got to correct one of the numbers. So there's a little bit there that needs to be done. Maybe that on average takes about 5 minutes each, and that's about half the time. If my starting point is those 1,000 inspections, I want to do these other 1,000 inspections using AI in that situation, then with the 1,000 inspections without AI, it's going to take me about 117 hours. That's just under 3 weeks. And it's going to cost me about $23,000, right? So that's the 7 minutes where I take 7 minutes each. With AI, half of my inspections are going to take 2 minutes. That's going to do 17, you can see the math here, 17 hours, $3,000. And the next ones where they're not perfect, that takes me 42 hours and costs me $8,000. I add those two up and I see that I get about 58 hours and about $11,600. If you notice, that's about half. The way the math is designed to work right now is that's just about half the amount of time from the 117 hours and $23,000. So with AI, I'm getting about a 50% productivity boost, or pardon me, 100% productivity boost. I am increasing my speed and effectiveness by 100%. What that means is that I'm decreasing my time by about 1.5 weeks, right? So what used to take 3 weeks of actual time, remember, we're not talking about drive time and stuff like that. 3 weeks of actual inspection time is now down to about 1.5 weeks. And the AI-based cost decrease is about 50% because I go from $23,000 to just under 12. So most of the time people will focus on this and say, look, it's going to cut my costs in half. But that's only part of the conversation. If you pay $1 million to save 12,000, then you're losing a lot of money. If you pay $10 to save $12,000, then your ROI is through the roof. So we need to not just cover what the benefit is on the cost side. We need to talk about what the benefit is on the cost decrease. We need to talk about what the cost is to get that decrease. And everybody's situation is different. And I started looking at this and I was like, there's no way I can make a single example that's going to make everybody happy. So I asked a different question. I just said, what would it have to cost in order to make that ROI 100%? Now remember what 100% ROI means. 100% ROI means that if you give me $1, I'm going to pay you back your $1 and I'm going to give you another $100 in savings or some other kind of bottom line benefit. So remembering that my cost before AI was the $23,000, the AI-based benefit was $11,666 in savings. Let's think about the time there for a second, right? I had 3 weeks worth of actual time, but nobody's going to be able to work all 3 weeks doing nothing but inspections. They've got to drive, they got to do paperwork, they got to have lunch, they got to do all those things, right? But if I saved a week and a half, then maybe I can do all of those things in 1 month. So maybe the cost I can look at is what does it cost me per month to have all of those inspections done, something like that. I don't have an exact answer, but that has to be a consideration. So let's say that by reducing the amount of time it takes down to a week and a half, I'm able to get all 1,000 inspections done within a month. If that's the case, then I can bring up my ROI calculation, and you could solve this for yourself to using some basic math, but I just plugged in the answer for you. It's $115. If I say $115, that bottom line benefit is the $11,666, the spend is $115, the ROI calculation works out to be just slightly over 100%, 100.44%, right? So that means I need to spend just $115. If I can spend $115 or less to get this benefit for this one truck rolling out for 1 month, if I can spend $115 or less, then I'm going to get at least 100% ROI. And 100% ROI is ridiculous, right? People look for 10%, 20%, 30%. 100% ROI is very, very high. The benefit of AI is looking to be almost as high or maybe higher as the benefit of moving from paper to digital inspections generally. So remember what we said, every dollar you gave me, I paid you back and I saved an extra $100. That's a very powerful message to send to the people who are talking about funding your AI initiatives. But I want to talk about payback period because your CFO is thinking a little differently potentially from just what's my return on investment, because he's thinking about how long is it going to take there. He's actually thinking the following things. I'm paying for your thing now. You're asking to invest in AI right now. And if I pay for that, then I'm going to be using money that I would normally use to pay for other things. I'm going to have to buy more stuff, which means if you're telling me that you're going to get more money from this, that you're going to get a return on this investment, I need to understand how quickly that return starts coming back to me, right? So it's not just about, am I going to see a big benefit? It's also, when am I going to see that big benefit? How is it going to affect my cash flow? Things like that. So for your CFO, you need to start thinking about your bottom line impact, not just over the long haul, what's it going to look like, but the 1 month at a time kind of bottom line impact. And the question you need to ask yourself is how many months is it going to take before you've paid your CFO back? And also, very importantly, when does that time period start? Maybe it only takes 6 weeks for you to pay him back, but if it takes 1.5 years because that's the implementation time, well, that might not be a good deal, right? So we need to understand when the time period starts that he's going to start seeing that back. By the way, I'm doing this monthly, but you can do it weekly, quarterly, whatever. Here's the calculation for that payback period. You're saving these $11,000 plus monthly. That's $140,000 annual savings. Those are equivalent. You're going to see in a second. The formula uses actually just fine the $11,666 up top. but you'll spend $10,000 on startup costs. Let's say you need to think about building some reports. You need to think about building a model. You need to get people on board to build applications, whatever it might be. There's stuff that you've got to do before you start to serve that individual who's out in the field on the truck, right? So there's those startup costs that have to get through first. Plus then you've got the $115 a month to serve that one person, which ends up annually being about $1,380. Remember, that was our 100% ROI cutoff, right? So that's why it's $115 a month. Fulcrum is actually cheaper than that. But given the amount, excuse me, given the amount of money that you're spending, you're looking at your year one costs being $11,380. The payback period in months is this formula: the cost divided by the annual benefit divided by 12 months. Well, we've got the monthly savings, so you can just plug that in as well, or you can take the annual savings and divide by 12, just like the formula says it is. The payback period for what we're talking about, therefore, with that $10,000 in startup costs and everything else, is less than a month. It's about 0.98 months. It's just shy of a month. So if you go to your CFO with a plan saying, this is the expected payback, and this is when I'm going to be able to start paying you back, then you'll be able to say, okay, I need a month or 6 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is, a build-up time, and then within a month after that, I'll be able to start paying you back for the money that you've given me. They like that kind of conversation. Always when you're talking to financial people, think about when the benefit is supposed to start. You know, people need to be trained, potentially reports need to be written, et cetera. If you're part of a consulting company, then maybe the first customer that you serve is going to be the first time you really see the benefits. You need to think about those things as you talk about the payback period, and you need to be realistic about it. So your payback period, always think about that cost divided by the annual benefit divided by 12 months, plus however long it takes for you to complete onboarding prep, whatever it might be. So with all of that, what I'd like to do now is turn from our discussions about the need for ROI and payback period for the financial people that we work with. And I'd like to talk about why deploying AI in the service of the field requires a platform that's really designed from the ground up to help you launch innovation. And of course, this is about Fulcrum, but it's just, this is the way that we think. This is the way that we work at the company. So we believe this. We talk about this because we believe it to be true. Let's talk about why we believe it to be true. I'm going to start by noticing, and I think you probably, most of you online here are going to agree roughly with this, that when we talk about things like digital transformation or innovation in our organizations, the field frequently doesn't see some of those major initiatives, major efficiencies from the initiatives involved. There's a bunch of stuff going on that that your IT staff, for example, might not understand. They're thinking about all of the office applications and so on that get used, and they're thinking about how to streamline those processes. They don't deal with sensors and IoT as much. That's all kind of advanced for them. When they do get involved for digital transformation, IT is required to do things like support from an integration standpoint, change management standpoint, security is critically important there. So IT does get involved to do those things as well. They should. And there are platforms out there designed for the office that work for the office. They're common. Everybody understands what they are. They understand what the requirements are. And there's a ton of work that gets done in that area. The field is still somewhat left out on their own. They don't have, again, the IoT capabilities, all the different kinds of sensors capabilities. They don't understand what it takes to work in the field. And what ends up happening is all of those applications that are used by the office, like IBM Maximo, right? They've got Maximo Mobile, and they're going to deploy Maximo Mobile to the devices of the people who are out in the field. And the problem is there's not just one of them. There's a bunch of them because each one of those major applications has their own, which means that person out in the field has to juggle with a lot of different kinds of technology, and none of those things really serves him or her. Those things serve the people who are sitting back in the office. They don't serve the person who's responsible for asset management inspections so much as they serve the person in the office who runs asset management from a corporate perspective. So they're slow and they're siloed and they're hard to work with and they're complicated for that person out in the field. So one of the things that IT will start to get involved in is to say, okay, well, we need to do better for the field and empower them. And this feels like the right thing to do. But bear with me for a second, because when the IT team and the GIS team frequently, because they're so deeply embedded in what the field has to do, what happens is they start off with a lot of integration. And anybody who's done enterprise integration knows that this is a vast simplification of what actually happens. But we're going to do some integration to make sure that these things work together to support the field. And then we're going to build applications and deploy those apps out to people who are working in the field. And that's where we got to start asking questions. Are you really going to see the kind of ROI out of those apps that you were hoping to get out of those apps? And if not, why not? One of the major things we see is flexibility issues, right? Once IT is responsible for building those mobile apps, now you have to get in line with all of the other IT priorities that are out there. And that means that you might ask for something. Maybe there's an app you're doing that's for asset management, and there's a safety check you should be doing before you check that asset. Well, the field just needs to add the safety check. But the guy who owns Maximo back in the back office doesn't need that, and now IT has to be the middleman between them to bring to add that safety check to the app that's really there to help us do asset management. It's really challenging. You're talking weeks or months sometimes between the request for something simple and its actualization. So this is complicated. It sounds right. It's where instincts go, but it's actually not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to put the field on a level playing field, no pun intended, with the office by having a platform that's designed to do the kind of things that they need to do, designed to do process execution, designed to integrate with all of those office systems, designed to integrate with field tech, because it's something that understands how to work with the various kinds of different unique field-oriented technologies that are out there. And it needs to be something where the IT staff or the GIS staff is not doing all of the work themselves. You can make the changes yourself inside the Fulcrum platform. And of course, this is a need that has seen an evolution of the market. So Fulcrum's not the only platform out there doing this kind of thing, but we're the best for this kind of field work because we understand all of the individual requirements, things like GIS integration, the kind of field tech integration we need, the kind of flexibility that you need from the perspective of incorporating things like sensors and drones and all of those other sorts of things. We need to be able to bring all of those things together. And that's why you really need, in order to create an environment where AI can really flourish in the field, you need a platform that's designed to allow the field to control its own destiny and to incorporate its own technology the same way that the office has its platforms to do the same thing. And that's where Fulcrum fits into the story here. And that's why we see Fulcrum as so important for using AI. With that, I'd like to wrap it up. I'd like to call on Zach to come back off camera. He's going to be here too. There's a couple of things that I'd like you to be aware of. First of all, we have a great product team. Katie Briggs and Adrian Zuniga are out there listening probably right now. And their email addresses are here. If you're interested in doing this kind of thing, you are either currently a customer or want to become a customer, please reach out to them and start talking to them about your use case so we can see what can be done for you. One of the things they asked us to do for this webinar is to put the survey that you see in the lower left, right? The bit.ly link there and the QR code go to the same Google form, and they've got questions about what's important to you and why is it important to you and what can we do better to serve you. So please do go take a look at that form when you get the chance. Also, Zach and I are going to be doing something very much like this on October 17th. It's going to be specifically for water utility teams. So if you're in the water industry and you want to bring a colleague to that, you'll get some of the same exact content as you've gotten right now, but it will be tailored to your industry. And with that, I'll leave this up for a little bit, but with that, I'd like, Kurt, are you there, or are you able to field some questions for us?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Kurt is currently concerned about experiencing a hurricane, so we'll see how.
Be okay for now. I do have some questions here, though, and feel free to put it in the chat. Ask some more. Ask anything you're interested in. One of the ones that we've got right here is from Thomas Tuller. Is the voice capabilities also available offline on device?
Oh, what I demoed today is not currently, but we are actively watching what's possible to do offline because things are changing rapidly. So when I say it doesn't work offline, it doesn't mean forever. It's just a matter of, you know, aligning the technology with what's possible. So we're going to be looking to do offline as soon as we can. So it's something we're keeping in mind.
Sean from Brown and Caldwell is out there. Hi, Sean. Nice to see you. In all caps, photo-based fast fills. So that sounds really cool. His question, Zach, is how do we add this AI workflow to existing apps?
So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, right now we're in kind of a POC period of early stages, and we're going to be starting that in a broader version of that in the beginning of Q4. So that's coming up here soon at the beginning of October with the voice audio dictation. So if anyone's interested in that, we can get with you, and please reach out to Katie and Adrian, and we can enroll you in that if you're interested. And the other photo-based fast fill is coming later. We're currently in the research process of that and figuring out how to productize it. But I would recommend reaching out to us and getting the conversation going and making sure you're part of our early access stuff.
I think it's worth mentioning that the things that we are doing right now are happening so fast that you're going to hear about capabilities that are currently out in the field with a proof of concept, some things that are happening that we've had in the product for a little bit that we are able to say here's precisely how it's going to happen every time because it's productized in that way, and everything in between. So things are just changing that fast right now. So pretty important to recognize. One other question here, Zach, was that she noticed that you were using pre-existing images for the demo and wants to know if that's because it had to be trained on that kind of image or if this is something that is more flexible than that.
So the first demo with object detection, those models are trained on a specific subtasks like detecting utility pole attachments. But the LLM-based one that's using generative AI is much more adaptable and flexible, and it can understand more universal knowledge, and you can do much greater, much more wider, versatile things. So there's two different approaches. The downside, of course, of the LLM-based approach is it's a connected online solution. So two different solutions for two different problems. So depending on what the need is, you can use either one.
A different question comes in now about a need for, it's actually not any of the use cases we talked about, but it's actually what I've heard about from our product managers before. When there is an audio recording, like when somebody is dictating into something, sometimes there's profanity or something like that, and they don't want that cluttering up their systems. Is there a way to eliminate profanity from the transcripts of the audio?
Yes, there is, and that's part of our productization effort is to find and make sure those kind of guardrails are up, and we have the ability to do that, and among other things with the productization effort. But yeah, we have the ability to do lots of pre and post processing with the input and output from the models, so we can do things like clean up the data, remove filler words, stuff like that.
Cool. Sorry, let me flip through here too. So somebody is asking a question regarding AI support for OCR. Fikile, if you want to explain what question it is you really want to ask there. Does it support OCR? The same thing that you saw, I had a slide earlier that showed reading a label on a pole and that being transferred into a field. So if that's what you mean, then the answer is yes. If you mean something different by that, can you please put in another question to let us know about that. Another question that comes in is, do you currently have a way to measure attachment heights on utility poles? If I'm not mistaken, that's still something that we're looking at, correct, Zach?
Yeah, something like that would require an actual physical sensor for the distance measurements. So that's not something that we've been able to have any success with on the object detection models, but you know, we do have plans to keep looking at it, but we're not currently doing that.
What I would recommend is to reach out to us and describe your use case and what you currently have available to do that kind of thing. Although things aren't productized, I hear all the time about things that have been done even if they are not productized. I mean, one of the integrations I heard about a little while ago was we were doing some work with a company that does fracking, and the drill temperature gauge needed to be connected, or the drill temperature sensor needed to be connected into Fulcrum in order to capture that kind of information. We'd never done it before, but we said, let's give it a try and figure out what the use case is, what's available to us, et cetera. And we were able to do something for that. I think it was a prospect at the time. So reach out and see, let's see what you've currently got. And this is true for anything, by the way. This is true for whatever your use case might be if we haven't talked about it yet. Reach out, say what your requirement is, what you currently have available, and we'll talk about whether or not it's a reasonable thing to try to engage on that specific requirement. We're actually running out of questions, so if you have any more questions available, I actually expected more questions than this on this webinar just because there's so much going on. But if you have any more questions, please do send them in. I just from a personal perspective on this, while we're giving everybody one last chance, from a personal perspective on this, I'm a marketing guy and I'm really interested in what's going to be interesting to the market as a whole. But I have never seen before something that is so practical and just works the way that some of the work that's happening here. We were literally talking about this webinar, going through what Zach was going to demo, and I asked the question, can they translate from Spanish to English at the same time? And Zach said, let's check it out. And 10 minutes later, he said yes. So that's the level of flexibility and change that we're seeing here, and it's extremely pragmatic. So just a very exciting time to be working in this field, and very exciting to be working with a company that's doing things so pragmatically for the field. A different question coming in about if you're able to detect the type of light on a utility pole, such as LED or HID or Cobra, post-top light, floodlight. Also the type of conductor on utility poles, same person actually, primary, secondary, joint use. I believe the answer to that is going to be around the models themselves, right? You have to train the models to be able to make those kinds of detections. Zach, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that or not.
Yeah, the ability for it to make that distinction is going to depend on a number of factors, like the quality of the image and the level of variance between the things that you want to detect. If they're very, very similar looking, it's likely going to have a lot of trouble. But if there's enough distinction between those things in the photo, then likely it would work. So questions like that, it does require some trial and error on whether or not it's viable and meets an accuracy threshold that actually is something you would want to take to production. But it's something that we could definitely help you look at, and we'd be willing to try it out.
Can this AI recognize traffic signs attached to poles? I think it actually might be worth taking a second to talk about what this AI means, because I've got another question here talking about, do I have to use OpenAI / ChatGPT? Can you talk a little bit about what it means for Fulcrum to leverage AI, Zach?
Yeah, so in the demos we saw today, there's two kind of buckets of functionality. One is running offline and running an embedded engine on the phone, on the device, running the inference process on a local model. And those are using conventional AI, ML base models that you have to train yourself. And so we don't have a training platform to do that. There's lots of other platforms to build models. From the top cloud vendors all make tooling to be able to annotate images and build a training data set. And there's a whole ecosystem of tools around building your own model. Fulcrum doesn't provide that tooling. What we provide is the ability to take the output of those tools, which is the model file, upload it to Fulcrum, and we will actually run the inference offline on a model that you built in one of these other platforms. So that's kind of one side of the AI story, is kind of bring your own model. And the other side is we are a conduit to the foundational LLM models from OpenAI and the other model providers. Currently, what we saw today is using OpenAI, their API. And so we're actually passing the data there, and we're still again in the productization effort, working out how to handle the authentication, and do we allow you to use your own OpenAI account or Microsoft Copilot account or what have you, so that the data you're sending to the model is sort of under your contractual agreement with the vendor. For example, OpenAI Enterprise has a different terms of service than the regular OpenAI API. So, and there's lots of concerns around data privacy, and each one of these providers has their own set of privacy guarantees that they make, and so we're still looking into what the options are. But we have no strong opinion on which provider. We want to meet you, the customer, where you're at with what you're willing and able to use, so that we can get be able to get the value to you. So that's a high level view of the two different pieces of functionality that we saw today. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, so my takeaway from that is, when we talk about this AI, it's actually not an AI that we are imposing on anyone. It's an AI capability that we are using. If you currently have a staff that knows how to do AI using some set of platform or some set of tools and train a model that way, then we are going to be able to incorporate the model into Fulcrum. And if you are currently using OpenAI to do as the LLM in order to handle situations at your company, then we would use OpenAI. That's where we've done a lot of our own testing, but it could work, should work with Claude or any of the others, as long as they have the right APIs to be able to incorporate the right calls to them. Do I have that right, Zach? I know I'm like on the wall of what a marketing guy should be talking about, but that's my understanding.
That's exactly right.
Okay, cool. One of the questions here, which I don't know that we can give a straight answer to, is how long does it take to train a model? How many inspections are needed? I think that's, I don't know if we can give an answer to that. Remember that AI doesn't give you an answer per se, it gives you a probability of an answer, right? So if, there's a very famous meme that went around showing Chihuahuas and blueberry muffins. And it was really tough for people to tell the difference between, for me specifically, to tell the difference between some of the Chihuahuas and some of the blueberry muffins. So how accurate, what level of accuracy you require, those kinds of things can all matter to the question about how long it takes to train a model. Zach, I don't know if I missed anything or messed that up. Please correct me as needed.
Nope, that's right.
Okay, cool. I'm getting there. We're pretty, I think we're about out of questions that we can answer. There was one question about pricing, and I just have to say, unfortunately, I need you to talk to us. Some of the capabilities that we're talking about are things that are pretty straightforward in Fulcrum. There will be costs, as the question asks. I assume there'd be an associated cost with the third-party LLM. That's not necessarily something that Fulcrum's going to do and then pass on to you. That's probably something that you're going to manage yourself, et cetera. So it's really Katie and Adrian, their email addresses are up here in the upper left. If you're currently a Fulcrum customer, I really recommend you reach out to them about the use cases you're involved in, the requirements that you have, all that kind of good stuff. They're both great people and would be happy to work through that stuff with you. If you're not currently a Fulcrum customer, but you want to be, then you can also reach out to them, but we'll probably need to have a cost and sales conversation as well at the same time. I think we've hit the top of the hour. So Zach, thanks. I mean, mind blowing as always. And I've really enjoyed these webinars just because of the amount of stuff that you show. To everyone who's out there listening, we know that you could have done something else with this hour, and we really appreciate you spending the time with us. Kurt, our producer, thank you very much. Take care, everyone, and have yourselves a great day.